I'm Stephanie, and let's talk books. So I am coming at you today with another Wheel of Time reading update. I have finished book 12, Gathering Storm, and book 13, Towers of Midnight, which means I have just one more book to go before I finish this colossally massive book series. And I wanted to do a check-in before I finished the final book and let you know my thoughts on the first two of the three books that Brandon Sanderson finished after Robert Jordan tragically passed away. So I'm going to be chatting about books 12 and 13, which means there be spoilers ahead. Lots of spoilers. Basically anything except for A Memory of Light is up for Wheel of Time spoilers. So if you're not as far into Wheel of Time as I am, go read the books, watch some of my earlier videos, and then come back to this video when you're all caught up. Let's start out by answering the big question that I had after reading book 11, which was I going to be able to tell a massive difference between the Jordan-only books and the Robert Jordan Sanderson collaboration books? A lot of you guys chimed in and let me know your opinion on whether you thought you could tell a difference, and I really appreciated that. I did. It was very weird. There wasn't anything that I could specifically pinpoint and say, oh, that's something that's definitely Sanderson and not something that Robert Jordan would do. The ease at which I was able to get through this book, I immediately recognized as being the same type of feeling when I got to read a Sanderson original. Now, Brandon Sanderson is my personal absolute favorite author, so not surprising that I enjoy his writing style, and I think my big takeaway from reading The Gathering Storm was that I just love Brandon Sanderson's writing style. It is really one that I absolutely enjoy. Now, I'm not trying to say that Brandon Sanderson is a better writer than Robert Jordan. I'm sure you guys can duke it out in the comment section below if you have an opinion, but I personally just prefer Sanderson. Robert Jordan still has certain things that he does that just annoy me. I don't like, even though I may enjoy some other aspects of his writing. So the short answer is yes, I could tell a difference, but no, I'm not complaining about it. One of the things I really enjoyed in The Gathering Storm was Rend's character arc. I find his dealing with his insanity really interesting. It made him such a more complex and interesting character. I really enjoy characters that have some sort of mental illness or those kind of mental struggles, something that I can really relate to with my own mental health issues, and I thought that made him absolutely the most interesting character in that book. I think one of the big things that took center stage in The Gathering Storm was the conflict between the White Tower and the rebel Aes Sedai. Egwene is still trapped in the White Tower, and I didn't really enjoy most of that part of the story. There is still this idea that the best way to get somebody to toe the line is to spank them, and now give them chores. So we get all these sections of people beating Egwene and her having to do all these menial chores, and then they heal her so that they can beat her again, and I'm just like, what is with the spanking? I know I've said that before, but think about it. You have an entire organization of powerful magic users, not to mention a whole host of ones that are secretly evil, and you can't come up with a better way to torture somebody than spanking and chores. I mean, you might as well make her write lines and stand on the corner in timeout. Once we kind of get through that section and there's actually some resolution to this conflict, I really enjoyed that part of the story and Egwene's arc with the battle and with her being accepted in her position by all of the Aes Sedai, and I'm glad that we got that conflict wrapped up because it was just kind of dragging on along, and like I said, there's a lot of things with that Aes Sedai versus Aes Sedai conflict that I just didn't find particularly interesting, so I was super happy that that got wrapped up, and we can move on to now a united group of Aes Sedai who are hopefully going to do some awesome things and kick some serious Trolloc butt. Alright, so now let's move on to the Towers of Midnight. I have a little bit more to say about this book because I actually jotted down some notes about different things while I was reading this book, and I really wish I would have done that for some of the other books. It would help me keep the events of those books a little bit more structured in my brain. But this book had some things I really enjoyed as well as some things I really did not enjoy, which seems to be kind of a theme for the series. So let's start by talking about Elaine's plotline. Elaine's plot in this book can be summed up by simply saying, pregnant Elaine does stupid things and continues to do stupid things. A lot of the things that you do would even be stupid for her to do, even if she wasn't pregnant. You have to remember, despite the fact that she is a very powerful magic user, she's also very young and does not have a lot of experience. But she keeps putting herself in positions where she is physically endangering herself and her 2 unborn children, and she doesn't seem to care. Now, another one of the characters, Min, had a vision that her babies would be born healthy, and she has just taken this as a get-out-of-jail-free card to do whatever the heck dangerous things that she wants to, which I think is really irresponsible and seriously has me questioning her parenting skills for these 2 yet-to-be-born children that she's going to have. Yeah, it's just not good. Even after one of these dangerous decisions that she makes gets her physically injured seriously and she's concerned about losing the babies, she doesn't stop doing dangerous things. Robert Jordan actually has her say something along the lines of, oh wait, maybe Min's vision that my babies will be born healthy doesn't mean that I'll be okay. But then she goes on and continues to do more stupid things, completely ignoring that revelation that people have been telling her this whole time. So if she makes it through this alive, it won't be for lack of trying. Moving on to another lady from the Wheel of Time, Egwene. Despite the fact that I enjoyed a lot of the second half of her arc in the Gathering Storm, I thought that her plotline in the Towers of Midnight had a lot of just useless drama. She's having issues with Wayne, who is her love interest. They have previously hooked up in another book, so they've already coupled up, they already like each other, but they're just having ridiculous drama problems. They won't talk to each other about it, and if they would have just taken a chunk of time and sat down and really expressed to each other what they were feeling, what they didn't like about how the other person was treating them, they could have worked it all out and had no problems. But no, Egwene is too high and mighty and above that, and she's just gonna keep treating Gawain like he's trash until he figures out how to read her mind and treat her the way she wants to be treated. I'm like, girl, I know you are the head of the Aes Sedai, but like, take yourself down a couple of pegs and treat this person that you supposedly love with a little bit of decency and actually talk to him about stuff. Granted, he also had issues with the way that he was treating her, not a one-person relationship problem, but I thought the fact that she just kind of dismissed him, she wouldn't make time for him, and she just treated him poorly and kind of like brushed him off, it just didn't sit very well with me. They were together and I felt like this was just like useless drama that was thrown in just so there could be relationship drama and to make something go on in that relationship, because we know that they like each other and they're going to end up together, but we just need some more drama to fill this book in. Alright, moving on to Parian. Again, this was one where some of his plotline I thought was a little bit boring, but I did really enjoy his time in the Wolf Dream. That's something that I enjoyed from earlier in their series, and I'm super glad that it is back. I think that is really interesting, and his ability to go into the Wolf Dream and do stuff there is unique and interesting. I really wish that the Aes Sedai and the Wise Ones who are dreamers would have taken more of an interest in Parian, and we could have seen them like be really interested, like, ooh, like what is this other thing that he can get into Teleron Riyadh and all these other things going on, and that could have been like some really interesting where they could have really developed the dream world more and the wolf dream and how that he could work in concert with the ladies and do different and unique things, but he's still kind of just off by himself with the wolves. Still super interesting, but I think that's definitely a missed opportunity for me. And I'm so happy we finally get the Parian, Fael, Elaine love triangle sorted out. This is another one where there was a lot of useless drama. Poor Parian is being emotionally hunted down by this other woman despite the fact that he's married. He has told her he's married, he's not interested in any extramarital relationships, but she keeps on going after him, and Fael, his wife, is just puffing and puffing like, how come you're being so nice to her? Me. And that's what we've been getting for lots of books. And Fael girl, she just needs to learn to talk to Parian. We just need to go to Randland and give everybody some communication classes so that we can communicate effectively with each other and not have stupid drama. But Fael finally actually does something about this problem rather than just be a jerk to Parian, and she confronts Elaine. So yeah, girl, you should have done that in the first place. I know if there was some woman after my man, oh man, there'd be some catfighting going on. I would take her down. I would not just sit around and huff and puff and pout. So we do get an explanation from Elaine as to why she was so obsessed with Parian, and I thought this reason was really dumb. And her excuse is that her relationship with Rand led her to believe that Rand wanted her to be married to someone important to Rand, and for some reason she picked Parian as the one that she thought Rand wanted her to be with, despite the fact that the dude's already married. Yeah, woman was reading things that weren't there. And I thought that was just really stupid. But she finally agrees to leave Parian alone, and then immediately falls head over heels in love with somebody else. Yeah, Jordan. Not the best romance writer, but I'm just glad it's done. Parian and Fael are still married, mostly happily, and Elaine is distracted by some other nice piece of man meat. So I thought that Abi Enda got some interesting story points in this book. She was a favorite of mine in some of the earlier books. I thought her character was really interesting, and the struggle that she had with being in love with Rand while also being friends with Elaine and knowing that Elaine was in love with Rand, and that, of course, that's been dealt with and over for a while now. But I felt like kind of in the middle, her story was a little bit more boring, and she just spent a lot of time just hanging out with Elaine, just not really doing a whole lot. So she goes back to the city in the desert where they get the visions so she can become a wise one. And I thought those visions were really cool. I did catch on in the visions that something weird was going on, because in her first set of visions, she sees visions of the past, and the Aiel get to learn where their people come from. And so I was thinking, this doesn't really line up with the timeline of what we know before. I wasn't able to figure out the twist that it was actually visions of the future instead of visions of the past, but I did think it was really cool and interesting, and definitely added some more to the lore of this series. And it does make me kind of sad that there's no possibility for us to see any books set in the next age and in the future of this series. I don't know that I would want to do another 14-book series set in this world, but I do think that just with the mythology and the idea of the Wheel of Time and things working cyclically, that it could have been really cool to do a couple of series set at different points in time in the same world. Alright, so you know how I just said that in book 12 I thought Rand was super interesting and I loved his struggle with his insanity? He just became the most boring vanilla person again. He is just magically, in the snap of a finger, healed from all of his mental issues, and I'm like, what just happened? He's not insane, he doesn't have any struggles with his path or what he has to do or the fact that he's probably going to die, and we're not giving any explanation for really what brought this change about other than the fact that he accepted death. And I thought that was really strange because throughout his journey in the series, I never got the impression that he was scared or worried or upset about the fact that he was probably going to die or could possibly die trying to save the world. That wasn't something that I ever saw him struggle with. So for the answer to him being healed to be that he accepted the fact that he was going to die, it just felt really off to me, and it felt kind of like a cop-out. Now, I'm not sure if this is something that Jordan specifically had planned out or something that Brandon Sanderson had to kind of fill in the gaps for. I know we were going to go from here to here, but I don't know how Jordan wanted to get there. But it was still something that I thought was really disappointing and just really made me not interested in his journey anymore. Another thing about this transformation that I didn't like is part of the thing that he realized when he's talking to the Luz Theron in his head is that he realizes that something that gives him hope, why does he keep getting reborn again and again just to suffer and die, is that he has hope of being reunited with the love of his life, Elaine, who he murdered in a past life on accident, sort of. And I was like, that would be great if he did in fact get to find her again. But that's not going to happen because we already have Rand in this weird love star thing with the three ladies, and I don't think any of them are Elaine. We have no indication that any of them are her or something, and it's just something that on the surface it kind of sounds cool, but if you actually look at it in the context of what's already been established in the story, it just is really flimsy. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So there's kind of a part of me that really wants somebody else to come forward and be like, guess what? I'm your dead wife who's been reincarnated. And then the two of them run off and leave the three other ones behind and heartbroken. I don't think that is the path the story is going to take. But I've already expressed the fact that I don't love the weird love star thing. And I don't really want Rand to end up with any of these ladies. But I've just kind of given up on getting a good romance from a Robert Jordan story. So lastly, I want to talk about Matt, because I still think Matt is super awesome, and I really enjoyed the end section of him going into the towers with the snakes and the foxes. This was by far the highlight of the book for me. I will say I was a little bit disappointed that we got the big reveal that Moiraine is alive and she's being held in this tower, and then they just sit around and do nothing about it for a really long period of time. Kind of feel like this is something that's happened several times in the story where something happens and you feel like there should be this sense of urgency to fix it, but for no reason whatsoever they just procrastinate and don't really do anything. And I suspect that the real reason is this final event can't happen until these other things happen with other characters, so we just kind of have to fill that gap in with hanging out and not really doing a whole lot. But I don't know, maybe those of you who have read this series more than once can give me a better explanation for some of these situations where there should be urgency, but people apparently don't care that other people are in mortal danger and maybe they should go rescue them right now. So I did really enjoy the adventure with the snakes and the foxes. Those guys are like creepy sounding, and I love just kind of like the mental like thought process that they had to go through to try and figure out how can they combat these creatures who are super wily and want to really like dig their claws and take people. And I also really appreciate the fact that the rescue of Moiraine was not one without real cost. I feel like too often in fantasy novels that our hero will go on this like crazy quests and all this war and terrible things will happen and everybody comes out unscathed. So I was super excited when Matt actually lost his eyeball. As weird as that sounds, I know we already have Rand who's had his hand chopped off. So obviously Jordan isn't afraid to maim his main characters, but I really appreciated that more realistic thing, because when you have war, like, people don't come back 100% from that. Whether they have physical or mental or emotional issues, those are all things that people have to deal with when they go through something like this traumatic. I mean, come on, the world is about to possibly end soon, so there should be some pretty high stakes, which means there should be some pretty high costs. The one thing about this whole incident that I didn't like is that they rescue Moraine, and then all of a sudden Moraine and Tom are like professing love to each other. And I was like, wait, when did this happen? I was like super confused because I saw no signs of this relationship coming. None. Now, it could possibly be that there were some there and I just have forgotten it because Moraine has been MIA for so many books. But thinking back on it, the entire time that we have seen Moraine and Tom interact together was when Moraine had Lan as her warder. Now, we don't know every single possible thing about the warder-Aes Sedai relationship and all the different ways it can play out, but from what I can recall from the books, it seems like if a Aes Sedai is romantically involved with a man, it's one of her warders. They don't seem to be in relationships with people who aren't their warders. Now, not all Aes Sedai warder relationships are romantic, but it does seem like the Aes Sedai romantic relationships are all with warders, or if they're not, they quickly resolve that issue and make the warder bond with that man. So I find it odd that Moraine would have romantic relationship with a man other than her warder, even if she wasn't in a romantic relationship with her current warder. I don't know. I just thought that felt really odd and out of nowhere and didn't really make sense. But again, we've already established that I don't like the way Robert Jordan writes romantic relationships, so I mean, I guess if we're going to bring Moraine back from the dead, or she wasn't actually dead the whole time, I would like for her to have a happy ending and fall in love with someone. That would be great. So those are my thoughts on books 12 and 13 of the Wheel of Time series. I'm currently about halfway through of the final book, but I'm kind of taking my time with it and kind of spreading it out, so I'm not sure when I'm going to be finishing it. But I will be bringing a Wheel of Time update for the final book, and then also I want to do another video where I just kind of chat about the whole series in general. What are my overall thoughts about it? Who would I recommend it to? Who would I not recommend it to? All those things. So if you guys have any specific topics you would like me to talk about, either in the review of the last book or in the review of this series, you can go ahead and leave those down in the comment section below, and I will try to get those addressed in one of those two videos. Again, I haven't quite finished the series yet, so please no spoilers for book 14, but other than that, feel free to chat with me about A Wheel of Time. And until next time, bye.